The massive space station Concordia Prime hung in the darkness of space like a giant metal city. Inside its largest meeting room, representatives from dozens of alien species sat around a circular table that could hold 500 beings. The air was thick with tension, and the smell of fear from creatures who breathed different gases and sweated different chemicals. Captain Jake Morrison stood quietly in the observation deck above the main floor. His uniform was simple and dark blue, with no fancy decorations or bright colors like the other species wore. Next to him, Dr. Lisa Grant watched the chaos below through her thick glasses. She had been studying alien behavior for 20 years, but today something felt different. Down on the main floor, Ambassador Kate Williams sat perfectly still in her chair. Her hands were folded in her lap and her face showed no emotion at all. Around her, aliens were shouting in languages that sounded like screaming metal and breaking glass. Some had too many arms, others had no arms at all. Some breathed fire. When they got angry, others leaked green fluid from their skin. But the humans just sat there calm as stone. The trouble had started 6 months ago when the Zephyrian Empire began attacking small planets. The Zephyrians looked like giant lizards that walked on 2 legs. They had sharp teeth, black eyes, and skin that looked like armor. Their leader, War Prince Thakmor, was 8 feet tall and carried weapons on his belt that could kill 100 people with one shot. The small alien called Pip-34 was crying. Its blue tears fell on the metal table as it spoke in a voice that sounded like wind chimes. They killed everyone on my home world. 3 billion of my people are dead. They burned our cities and took our children as slaves. Please, someone must help us. War Prince Thakmor laughed. The sound was like rocks falling down a mountain. Your people were weak. Weak things die. That is the way of the universe. An alien that looked like a walking tree stood up. Its voice was deep and slow. The Kepler system is next. The Zephyrians will attack in 30 days. We must act now. Act how? Asked another alien that had 6 legs and blue fur. They have more ships than us. They have better weapons. What can we do? All eyes turned to the human section. Humans had been part of the Galactic Federation for 150 years. In all that time, they had never started a war. They were known across the galaxy as the Great Peacemakers. When other species fought, humans came with calm words and smart solutions. They built hospitals on war zones and brought food to hungry worlds. Ambassador Williams stood up slowly. She was a small woman with gray hair and kind eyes. Her voice was soft and gentle. The Federation must consider all options carefully. We cannot make hasty decisions that might make things worse. War Prince Thakmor's laugh grew louder. Listen to the soft human. Always talking, never fighting. Your species is weak. You hide behind words because you are afraid to spill blood. Williams did not change her expression. I request 30 days to study this situation. The Federation Council should not rush into war without proper planning. 30 days? The tree alien's branches shook with anger. In 30 days, the Kepler system will be ashes. 2 billion innocent beings will be dead. I understand your concern, Williams said. Her voice never got louder or faster, but wisdom requires patience. Hasty action leads to greater tragedy. The other aliens looked at each other with confusion and anger. The Zephyrians were getting ready to commit genocide, and the humans wanted to have meetings about it. Some aliens whispered that humans were cowards. Others said humans had grown too soft living on their peaceful planet Earth. War Prince Thakmor stood up. His armor made scraping sounds as he moved. I give you your 30 days, weak humans. We will wait while you hold your little meetings and write your little reports. When your time is up, we will take the Kepler system. And after that, maybe we will come for Earth. It would be easy to conquer a world full of cowards. The meeting ended with no decisions made. The aliens left angry and afraid. The Zephyrians left laughing and making jokes about human weakness. Up in the observation deck, Captain Morrison touched a small device in his ear. He spoke so quietly that only Dr. A. Grant could hear him. Admiral Collins, this is Morrison. The Zephyrians have taken the bait. A voice came back through the device, clear and calm. Understood, Captain. Initiate Protocol 7. It's time to remind the galaxy who we really are. Dr. Grant looked at Morrison with surprise. In 20 years of working together, she had never heard him use those words before. Protocol 7 was not something they taught in diplomatic school. Morrison's face had changed. The kind, patient expression was gone. Now he looked like a predator watching its prey. Lisa, contact all human ships in this sector. Tell them the discussion period is almost over. Jake, what's going on? What is Protocol 7? Morrison watched as War Prince Thakmor left the meeting room below. The alien prince was still laughing and making jokes with his officers. He had no idea that human eyes were tracking his every move, recording his every word, and calculating his every weakness. Protocol 7 is what happens when the galaxy forgets that Earth is a death world, Lisa. We've been patient for 150 years. We've been kind and gentle and diplomatic. But some creatures only understand one language. What language? Is that? Morrison's smile was cold and sharp. Violence, applied with surgical precision by a species that has been preparing for this day since we first learned that monsters like the Zephyrians existed. Down below, Ambassador Williams was packing her papers. She moved slowly and carefully, like always, but Dr. Grant noticed something new in the woman's eyes. It was the same look she had seen in Morrison's face, the look of a hunter who had been pretending to be prey for far too long. The galaxy thought humans were peacekeepers because humans had kept the peace for 150 years. What the galaxy did not understand was how humans had kept that peace. They did not know about the ships hidden in dark space, the weapons that did not officially exist, or the intelligence network that had been watching and learning and preparing. War Prince. Thakmor thought he had 30 days to prepare for conquest. He had no idea that humans had been preparing for 150 years to stop creatures exactly like him. The hunt was about to begin. 3 days after the meeting at Concordia Prime, a small black ship moved through space near the edge of Zephyrian territory. The ship had no lights and made no sound. It was so dark that it looked like a piece of empty space with engines. Inside, the ship Colonel Ryan Mitchell sat in front of a screen showing the layout of a Zephyrian military base. He was a tall man with scars on his hands and eyes that never seemed to blink. Next to him, Commander Amy Foster was typing quickly on a computer that showed information about Zephyrian weapons and battle plans. "How long have we been watching this base?" asked Lieutenant Ben Clark. He was young and had only been on 3 missions before this one. 47 years, Mitchell said without looking away from his screen. "We put the first spy satellite here in 2340. We know how many soldiers they have, what they eat for breakfast, and how often they change their guard shifts." Clark's mouth fell open. 47 years? But we only learned about the Zephyrian threat 6 months ago. Foster stopped typing and looked at him. "Kid, we've known about the Zephyrian threat since the day we joined the Galactic Federation. We've been watching every aggressive species in the galaxy for over a century. The Zephyrians just moved to the top of our list." On the main screen, they could see Zephyrian soldiers walking around their base. The aliens looked strong and dangerous, but they moved in patterns that Mitchell had memorized years ago. Every patrol route, every guard post, every weak spot in their defenses was marked on human maps. "Foster, show him the intelligence files," Mitchell said. Foster pressed a button, and the screen filled with pictures and information. There were detailed maps of every Zephyrian world, profiles of every important Zephyrian leader, and plans of every Zephyrian ship. The files were thousands of pages long and had been growing for decades. "We know that War Prince Thakmor has a weak spot on the left side of his armor," Foster explained. "We know that Zephyrian ships have a design flaw in their engine systems. We know that their soldiers get confused when their communication systems are jammed in a specific way. We know everything about them, and they know nothing about us." "How is that possible?" Clark asked. Mitchell smiled, but it was not a kind smile. "Because for 150 years we've let them think we're harmless. Every time we met with them, they saw diplomats in simple clothes talking about peace. They never saw the intelligence officers recording every word, the technicians scanning their equipment, or the soldiers memorizing their weaknesses." Far away, on a space station hidden in an asteroid field, Dr. Steve Parker was working on something that would have terrified the Zephyrians if they had known it existed. The station was called Silent Thunder, and it did not appear on any official human records. Parker was a quiet man who wore thick glasses and had ink stains on his fingers from writing equations. But the weapons he was building could destroy entire fleets of enemy ships. The Federation had rules about what kinds of weapons were allowed, and Parker's creations broke every single one of those rules. "How much longer until the orbital cannons are ready?" asked Captain Nicole Hayes. She had arrived on Silent Thunder that morning to check on Parker's progress. "2 more days," Parker said, adjusting something on a device that hummed with dangerous energy. "The Zephyrians think the most powerful human weapon is a simple laser that can barely scratch their armor. They have no idea that we've been building planet crackers." Hayes nodded. She was the captain of a ship that the galaxy had never seen. Like Mitchell's stealth vessel, it was painted black and designed to be invisible. But Hayes's ship was much larger and carried weapons that could level mountains. "The Admiral says we need to be ready to move as soon as the 30-day period is over," Hayes said. "We'll be ready," Parker promised. "The Zephyrians are about to learn why Earth is called a death world." Back on Concordia Prime, Ambassador Williams was in her office having a video call with Admiral Pete Collins on Earth. To anyone watching, it looked like a normal diplomatic meeting. Williams sat at her desk looking calm and professional while Collins appeared on her screen wearing his simple uniform. But they were not talking about trade agreements or peace treaties. "The Ghost Fleet is in position," Collins reported. 37 ships hidden in dark space, all within striking distance of major Zephyrian targets. They've been there for 6 years waiting for this moment. "And the infiltration teams?" Williams asked. "Captain Luke Anderson has been undercover in the Zephyrian military for 15 years. He's now one of War Prince Thakmor's most trusted advisors. The prince has no idea that his favorite human slave is actually one of our most dangerous special forces officers." Williams allowed herself a small smile. 15 years of pretending to be weak and broken. That takes a special kind of patience. "Anderson volunteered for the mission," Collins said. "He said it would be worth it to see the look on Thakmor's face when he realizes the truth." Meanwhile, the Zephyrian Empire was preparing for their attack on the Kepler system. War Prince. Thakmor stood in his command center looking at pictures of the 3 peaceful worlds he planned to conquer. His officers were laughing and making jokes about how easy the conquest would be. "The humans are still holding their meetings," reported General Vex Tar, Thakmor's second in command. "They have asked for more time to study the situation. I think they are afraid to fight us." Thakmor's laugh sounded like breaking stones. "Of course they are afraid. Humans are soft creatures from a soft world. They have never known real war. When we are finished with the Kepler system, we will show them what happens to cowards who hide behind diplomacy." What Thakmor did not know was that Captain Anderson was standing right behind him, taking notes on everything the Zephyrians said. Anderson had spent 15 years earning their trust by pretending to be a broken slave who was grateful for their mercy. In reality, he was recording their battle plans, their troop movements, and their weaknesses. The Zephyrians thought they were hunters preparing to attack helpless prey. They had no idea that they were the prey, and the hunters had been watching them for decades. In space, more human ships moved through the darkness. They were painted black and traveled without lights. Some were as small as fighters, others were as large as cities. All of them were invisible to Zephyrian sensors and carried weapons that officially did not exist. The galaxy thought humans were peaceful because humans had spent 150 years keeping the peace. What the galaxy did not understand was that humans kept the peace by being prepared for war. They kept the peace by watching their enemies and learning everything about them. They kept the peace by building weapons in secret and training soldiers in the shadows. The Zephyrians had 27 days left before their planned attack on the Kepler system. They thought they were using that time to prepare for easy conquest. They had no idea that humans had been preparing for this war since before the Zephyrians knew Earth existed. The mask was starting to slip, and underneath it was something the galaxy had never seen before. Something patient, something calculating, something absolutely deadly. The attack on the Kepler system began at dawn on the 30th day. War Prince Thakmor led his fleet of 200 warships toward the 3 peaceful worlds that had never known war. The planets were home to gentle creatures who grew food and made art, and raise their children in safety. None of them had weapons that could stop the Zephyrian fleet. On the first planet, Kepler 442c, the bird-like aliens called the Aryans tried to evacuate their cities. Their children had feathers that changed color when they were scared, and now, whole flocks of young ones were turning white with fear. They had no weapons except farming tools and no ships except small cargo vessels that moved slowly through space. The Zephyrian ships fired their plasma cannons from orbit. Cities that had stood for 1,000 years turned to ash in minutes. Libraries full of ancient knowledge burned. Hospitals full of sick and elderly were destroyed. Schools where children learned to sing were turned to rubble. On the second planet, Kepler 442, the crystalline collective tried to hide in their underground cities. These aliens looked like living gemstones and communicated by making musical sounds. They had never hurt anyone in their entire history. They spent their lives growing beautiful crystal formations and sharing knowledge with other species. Wham! Zephyrians dropped bombs that shattered the crystal cities like broken glass. The musical voices of the crystalline collective fell silent forever. On the third planet, Kepler 442e, the Verdani people lived in harmony with the giant trees that covered their world. They were small, green-skinned beings who could talk to plants and make gardens bloom in empty soil. They had no military, no weapons, and no way to fight back. The Zephyrians burned their forest from space. The ancient trees that had grown for 10,000 years died screaming in flames that could be seen from orbit. In 12 hours, 2.4 billion innocent beings were dead or enslaved. At Concordia Prime, the other Federation species watched the destruction through news broadcasts and emergency reports. Some were crying. Others were shouting in anger. Many were looking at the human delegation with disappointment and rage. "Where are your diplomats now?" screamed the six-legged alien with blue fur. "You wanted 30 days to think. Now billions are dead because you were too slow to act." Ambassador Williams sat in her chair with the same calm expression she always wore. Her hands were folded in her lap and her voice was steady when she spoke. "The Human Federation expresses its deepest regret for this tragedy. We are committed to learning from these events and preventing future losses." The tree alien's branches shook with fury. "Regret? Learning? Your words are empty. You are cowards who hide behind meetings while innocent people die." Other aliens joined in the criticism. They called humans weak, useless, and afraid to fight. Some said that Earth should be expelled from the Federation for failing to protect the innocent. Williams listened to all of it without changing her expression. When the room finally grew quiet, she stood up slowly. "I will now contact Earth for further instructions," she said in her gentle voice. But instead of calling Earth, Williams pressed a different button on her communication device. The signal went to a ship hidden in the dark space between stars where General Tony Reed was waiting. "General Reed," Williams said, "the discussion period is over." Reed's voice came back clear and strong. "Understood, Ambassador. Initiating final phase. All units, this is command. The mask comes off now." 12 hours after the last Kepler world fell silent, everything changed. It started with a ship appearing in orbit around Concordia Prime. One moment there was empty space, the next moment there was a vessel unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. It was long and sleek like a predator fish, painted in black metal that seemed to absorb light. Weapons covered its surface like the spines on a dangerous animal. The ship's name was UES Retribution, and it was commanded by Captain Nicole Hayes. Inside the Federation Council chamber, alarms started ringing. The station's defense systems had never detected the ship approaching. It had simply appeared as if it had been invisible. "Unknown vessel," came a voice over the station's communication system. "Identify yourself and state your intentions." Captain Hayes's voice came back calm and cold. "This is Captain Nicole Hayes of the United Earthship Retribution. We are here to discuss the Zephyrian situation." "Retribution?" The station commander sounded confused. "That ship is not in our records. Earth has no vessels by that name." "Earth has many vessels that are not in your records," Hayes replied. "We are requesting immediate assembly of the Federation Council." More ships began appearing around Concordia Prime. They materialized out of empty space like ghosts becoming solid. Each one was different in design but similar in purpose. They were all built for war. Some were small and fast like hunting cats. Others were massive and covered in armor like ancient castles. In the council chamber, Ambassador Williams was no longer sitting quietly. She was standing at a control panel, her fingers moving quickly over buttons and switches. Information flowed across screens, showing the locations of Zephyrian fleets, the positions of human ships, and detailed battle plans that had been decades in the making. Dr. Lisa Grant, watching from the observation deck, felt her hands shaking. "Jake, what's happening? These ships, this information, none of this should exist." Captain Morrison looked down at her with eyes that had become hard as stone. "Lisa, for 150 years, the galaxy has known us as diplomats and peacekeepers. Today they learn what we actually are." "What are we?" Morrison's smile was like the edge of a blade. "We are the apex predators of a death world called Earth. We are patience hunters who have been stalking the Zephyrians since the day we realized they were a threat, and now the hunt is over." On the main floor, Ambassador Williams activated a communications array that connected her to every human ship, base, and outpost in the galaxy. Her voice, still calm and gentle, carried across space to reach ears that had been waiting for this moment for decades. "All units, this is Ambassador Williams. Protocol 7 is now active. You are authorized to reveal your true capabilities and eliminate the Zephyrian threat. The discussion period is over. Begin the harvest." Across the galaxy, human ships that had been hiding in dark space for years began to move. Space stations that had appeared to be simple research outposts revealed massive weapon arrays. Diplomatic vessels opened hidden compartments filled with military equipment. Human civilians on alien worlds shed their disguises and showed themselves to be intelligence operatives and special forces soldiers. The Zephyrian Empire, celebrating their easy victory over the Kepler worlds, had no idea that they were about to face an enemy that had been preparing for this war longer than their oldest soldiers had been alive. War Prince Thakmor was in his command center, laughing with his officers about how weak the Federation was, when his communications officer looked up with confusion. "My prince, we are receiving a message from the human fleet." "Human fleet?" Thakmor laughed. "The humans have no fleet. They have cargo ships and research vessels. Sir, our sensors are showing 137 human warships surrounding our position." Thakmor stopped laughing. "That's impossible. Show me." The main screen activated and Thakmor saw something that made his blood turn cold. His fleet was surrounded by ships that looked like they had been designed by nightmares. Each one was bristling with weapons that his sensors could not identify. A human voice came over the communication system, calm and polite. "War Prince Thakmor, this is Admiral Chris Thompson of the Human Ghost Fleet. We have been waiting 43 years for this conversation. Please prepare to surrender, or we will demonstrate why Earth is classified as a death world." War Prince Thakmor stared at the screen showing the human ships surrounding his fleet. His mouth was open, and for the first time in his life, he could not speak. The vessels looked nothing like the peaceful cargo ships and research vessels that humans were supposed to have. "This must be a trick," he finally said to his officers. "Humans do not have warships. They are weak creatures who speak of peace and write reports." General Vextar, standing beside him, was looking at the sensor readings with growing fear. "My prince, these ships are reading as real. Our computers cannot identify their weapon systems, but the energy signatures are massive." On the communication screen, Admiral Chris Thompson appeared. He was an older human with gray hair and eyes that looked like winter ice. Behind him, the bridge of his ship was filled with officers working at stations covered in displays showing Zephyrian positions. "War Prince Thakmor," Thompson said in a voice that was perfectly calm. "I am Admiral Thompson of the Human Ghost Fleet. We have been tracking your movements for 43 years. We know the location of every ship in your empire, every military base, and every weapons factory." "Impossible," Thakmor snarled. "We would have detected your ships." Thompson smiled, and it was not a friendly expression. "We have been hiding in dark space since before your grandfather was born. While you were conquering weak worlds and celebrating your victories, we were watching, learning, and preparing. At that moment, another human appeared on Thakmore's bridge. It was Captain Luke Anderson, who for 15 years had pretended to be a broken slave. Anderson was no longer wearing rags or walking with bent shoulders. He stood straight and tall, and in his hands was a weapon that made a soft humming sound. "Hello, my prince," Anderson said with a smile that made Thakmore's blood turn cold. "Did you enjoy our little performance? 15 years of pretending to be grateful for your mercy. 15 years of listening to your plans and sending every detail to Earth." Thakmore's eyes went wide with rage and fear. You were a spy. All this time you were a spy. Not just a spy, Anderson said. "Captain Luke Anderson, Human Special Forces. I volunteered for this mission because I wanted to see your face when you learned the truth." Around the command center, other humans who had been working as slaves were standing up. They were no longer bent and broken. They moved like soldiers, and each one carried weapons that appeared from hidden places in their clothing. "Every human you captured," Anderson explained, "every human you thought you broke and turned into a servant was actually a volunteer operative. We have been inside your empire for decades, mapping your defenses and waiting for this day." In space, the human ships were moving into attack positions. Admiral Thompson was speaking to his fleet commanders, and War Prince Thakmore could hear every word. "All ships, this is Admiral Thompson. Begin Phase 1. Show them what we learned from studying their weaknesses." The human ships opened fire, but not with the simple lasers that the galaxy expected humans to use. These weapons made no sound and left no trail of light. They simply reached out and touched Zephyrian ships, and those ships stopped working. "What are they doing to us?" General Vextar asked as his own ship's systems began to fail. Dr. Maria Santos, speaking from a hidden research station, answered his question through the communication system. "We are using focused electromagnetic pulses designed specifically to disable Zephyrian technology. We studied your ships for 50 years and learned exactly how to turn them off without destroying them." "Who are you?" Thakmore demanded. "Dr. Maria Santos, Director of Human Psychological Warfare Division. Every interaction your species has had with humans was designed to make you think we were weak and passive. We wanted you to become confident and careless. We wanted you to underestimate us completely." On Concordia Prime, the Federation Council was watching the battle through their sensors. The other alien species sat in stunned silence as they realized what they were seeing. The humans were not just fighting the Zephyrians. They were dismantling them like mechanics taking apart broken machines. Ambassador Williams stood at her control station, coordinating the attack with the same calm efficiency she had always used for diplomatic meetings. "Fleet Group Alpha, move to intercept the Zephyrian reinforcements approaching from the Vega sector. Fleet Group Beta, begin securing the prison camps on Zephyrian worlds." "Prison camps?" asked the tree alien, its voice filled with shock. Williams looked up from her controls. "We know the location of every Zephyrian slave camp, prison, and work facility. While you were criticizing our diplomatic delays, we were planning the liberation of every innocent being held by the Empire." Dr. Lisa Grant, still watching from the observation deck, felt like the world had turned upside down. "Jake, this is impossible. How could we have hidden all of this? How could no one know?" Captain Morrison was typing rapidly on a tablet, sending orders to human ships across the galaxy. "Lisa, think about every diplomatic mission we've been on. Every time we visited an alien world, how many humans were in our delegation?" Grant thought back to the dozens of missions she had been part of. Usually about 20 people. Diplomats, scientists, cultural experts. "Wrong," Morrison said. "Usually 5 diplomats and 15 intelligence operatives. Every cultural expert was studying alien psychology to find weaknesses. Every scientist was analyzing alien technology for tactical advantages. Every trade negotiation was an opportunity to plant surveillance equipment. The scope of the deception was becoming clear. For 150 years, humans had been playing a game that no other species even knew existed. Every peaceful gesture had hidden a military purpose. Every diplomatic delay had been used to position assets and gather intelligence. On the Zephyrian command ship, War Prince Thakmor was watching his empire collapse in real time. Human ships were appearing at every major Zephyrian world simultaneously. There was no way to coordinate a defense because the humans seemed to know every military code and communication frequency. "How many ships do you have?" Thakmor asked. "Admiral Thompson." "Enough," Thompson replied. "We have been building warships in hidden facilities for over a century. Every cargo vessel that left Earth was actually carrying military components to secret assembly points. Every research station was actually a weapons factory." Captain Anderson walked closer to Thakmor, his weapon still humming softly. "You want to know the real joke, my prince? Humans really are peaceful. We prefer diplomacy and cooperation. But we are also predators from a world where everything tries to kill everything else. When diplomacy fails, we don't get angry or emotional like other species. We become something much more dangerous." "What?" Thakmor whispered. "We become patient," Anderson said. "We study our enemy until we know them better than they know themselves. We wait until they are completely vulnerable. And then we strike, with absolute precision. The battle, if it could even be called a battle, was over in 6 hours. The Zephyrian Empire, which had taken 300 years to build, was completely defeated in less than a day. Not destroyed, defeated. The humans had been careful to capture rather than kill whenever possible. War Prince Thakmor found himself in chains aboard Admiral Thompson's ship. His empire was gone, his ships were captured, and his soldiers were prisoners. But the humans had not killed them. They had simply removed their ability to hurt others. "Why?" Thakmor asked as human guards led him to a cell. "Why did you not simply destroy us?" Admiral Thompson walked beside him, his hands clasped behind his back. "Because we are peacekeepers, Prince Thakmor. We keep the peace by making sure that creatures like you cannot break it. Your empire is ended, but your people will live as long as they do not threaten others." "But the hatred, the planning, the deception was necessary," Thompson said simply. "We gave you every chance to choose peace. You chose genocide instead, so we removed your ability to choose anything else." As the cell door closed, Thakmor realized that he had never understood humans at all. They were not weak or peaceful because they lacked the capacity for violence. They were peaceful because they had such a terrible capacity for violence that they chose not to use it unless absolutely necessary. When they did choose to use it, nothing in the galaxy could stop them. 3 days after the fall of the Zephyrian Empire, President Helen Carter stood before the assembled representatives of the Galactic Federation. The great meeting hall on Concordia Prime was silent, except for the soft sound of nervous breathing from dozens of different alien species. Carter was a small woman with kind eyes and a gentle voice, much like Ambassador Williams. But now every alien in the room looked at her with a mixture of respect and fear. They had learned that human appearances could be very deceiving. "Members of the Federation," Carter began, her voice carrying clearly through the hall, "I want to address the concerns that many of you have expressed about humanity's actions in the recent crisis." The six-legged alien with blue fur raised one of its clawed hands. "President Carter, we are grateful that you stopped the Zephyrians, but we are also frightened. You lied to us for 150 years. How do we know you will not turn your weapons on us next?" Carter nodded slowly. "That is a fair question. Let me explain something about human nature that you may not understand. We are indeed predators from what you call a death world. But we are also social creatures who form strong bonds with others. When we choose someone as a friend or ally, we protect them with the same intensity that we hunt our enemies." She pressed a button, and the large screen behind her showed images of human ships rescuing survivors from the Kepler worlds. Humans in white medical suits were caring for wounded aliens, building temporary shelters, and bringing food to refugees. In the past 3 days, human rescue teams have saved over 400,000 survivors from the Zephyrian attack. Our medical ships are treating the wounded, our engineers are rebuilding destroyed cities, and our diplomats are helping relocated families find new homes. The tree alien's branches rustled softly. But the deception, the secret weapons, the hidden fleets. How can we trust you after learning about all of this? Fleet Admiral Dan Brooke stepped forward. He was a large man with gray hair and scars on his hands from years of military service. Because the deception was never about you. It was about them. He pointed to an empty chair where War Prince Thakmor would have sat if he were still free. Every species in this room has been under human protection for 150 years, Brooks continued. Not because you asked for it, but because we saw threats developing and chose to prepare for them. The Zephyrians were not the only dangerous species in the galaxy. There were others. Dr. Alex Turner, a quiet man who had been working behind the scenes for decades, activated another display. It showed a map of the galaxy with red dots marking aggressive species and hostile territories. The Corvin Raiders, the Shadow Syndicate, the Ironclaw Empire, Turner said, pointing to different red areas. All of them have been planning attacks on peaceful worlds for years. All of them have been stopped by human intervention before you ever knew they existed. The blue-furred alien looked confused. Stopped how? We never heard about any wars with these groups. Because we stopped them quietly, Turner explained. Sometimes through diplomatic pressure, sometimes through economic sanctions, sometimes through targeted operations that removed their ability to threaten others. The galaxy has been at peace for 150 years because humans have been working to keep it that way. Ambassador Williams, who had returned to her usual seat, stood up slowly. We prefer peace, we always have. But peace is not something that happens naturally. Peace is something that must be maintained through constant vigilance and careful action. Then why the secrecy? Asked an alien that looked like a walking crystal. Why not work with us openly? Williams smiled sadly. Because most species are not ready to know what it takes to keep the peace. You want to believe that all beings are good at heart? That conflicts can always be solved with words? That violence is never necessary? Those are beautiful beliefs, and we wanted to protect them. President Carter stepped forward again. Let me tell you about something we call the apex predator doctrine. On Earth, the apex predator is not the largest or strongest creature. It is the one that hunts with intelligence, patience, and overwhelming precision. Humans became apex predators not because we were born killers, but because we learned to think, plan, and wait. She paused, looking around the room at faces that belonged to creatures who had never known the fear of being hunted. Most of you evolved on worlds where cooperation was the key to survival. You learned to work together, to share resources, to solve problems through discussion. These are wonderful traits, and they have created beautiful civilizations. The display behind her changed to show images of Earth. Vast oceans filled with predators, dense jungles where everything hunted everything else, frozen wastelands where only the strongest survived. Humans evolved on a world where almost everything could kill us. We learned to cooperate with each other while competing against creatures that saw us as food. We learned to be peaceful with our friends and absolutely lethal to our enemies. Dr. Turner added more information to the display. This is why human diplomatic missions always took longer than others expected. We were not just negotiating treaties. We were studying every species we met, learning their psychology, their capabilities, their potential for both friendship and hostility. A small alien that looked like a floating jellyfish spoke in a voice like singing wind. So you have been judging us all this time, deciding whether we are friends or enemies? Yes, Carter said simply, and every species in this room passed the test. You chose cooperation over conquest, peace over war, protection of the innocent over exploitation of the weak. That is why you are still free to make your own choices. And those who failed the test? Asked the tree alien. Admiral Brooks answered. Are no longer able to threaten anyone. The Zephyrians were the last major aggressive empire in this sector of the galaxy. With them gone, the immediate threats to galactic peace have been eliminated. The room fell silent as the implications became clear. Humanity had been quietly removing dangerous species from the galactic stage for over a century. The peace that other species had enjoyed was not natural. It was engineered. What happens now? Asked the blue-furred alien. President Carter smiled, and for the first time it looked completely genuine. Now, we continue as we always have. Humans will return to our diplomatic roles. We will continue to help with trade disputes, medical emergencies, and scientific research. We will continue to be the species that builds hospitals and brings food to hungry worlds. But the weapons, the fleets, the hidden bases will remain hidden, Admiral Brooks said, ready to respond if new threats emerge. The galaxy is safer now than it has been in centuries, but vigilance must continue. Ambassador Williams walked to the center of the room. I want you to understand something important. When we said we were peacekeepers, we were telling the truth. We keep the peace. But keeping the peace is not the same as avoiding violence. Sometimes, to protect the innocent, you must be willing to destroy those who would harm them. Dr. Turner activated one final display. It showed the current state of the galaxy. Trade routes flowing freely, scientific research stations sharing information, peaceful worlds developing without fear of attack. This is what we have been working to preserve, he said. A galaxy where children can grow up safely, where artists can create beauty, where scientists can explore the universe. We have been guardians, not conquerors. The meeting ended with no formal votes or declarations. The alien species simply acknowledged that they now understood the true nature of their human allies. Some were grateful, others were still afraid. But all of them recognized that the galaxy was indeed safer with humans watching over it. Later, as the delegates returned to their ships, Captain Jake Morrison stood with Dr. Lisa Grant on the observation deck overlooking the departing vessels. Do you think they'll ever truly trust us again? Grant asked. Morrison watched as a ship carrying rescued survivors from the Kepler worlds departed for a new home that humans had helped them find. They don't need to trust us, he said quietly. They just need to know that we're here, watching and waiting. The galaxy is full of creatures who choose cooperation and peace. As long as humans exist, those creatures will be safe to make that choice. Grant looked at her old friend and colleague with new understanding. We really are peacekeepers, aren't we? We just keep the peace differently than anyone expected. Morrison nodded. Peace through strength. Safety through vigilance. Freedom through the knowledge that those who would take it away will face consequences they cannot imagine. The galaxy had learned an important lesson. Humans were indeed peaceful, patient, and diplomatic. But they were also apex predators who had chosen to use their hunting skills to protect the innocent rather than exploit them. And that choice made all the difference.